Day.
Yes, hi everybody that's joining. Is this our first polite conversation of the year,
It
Heather?
is.
It is.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Welcome. We're really excited to be doing more of these again in this new year. So today we are chatting about a very big issue for most people, I think, in modern life, which is sleep. And specifically, Heather and I are going to be exploring resetting our relationship with sleep, which we'll get into deeply, but it's something that I think we are constantly revisiting and redoing throughout our life, different phases of life and tiredness and energy levels. But to introduce ourselves, for those of you that are new to Polite or new to this world of cannabinoids and sleep, I'm Sue Tan. I'm one of the co-founders of Polite, and we are focused on using all the plant-powered goodness that is in cannabis, hemp, also herbs, but figuring out how to modernize, this plant medicine for everyday life, right? And how to make it easy for people to integrate, but also make sure that it's safe, effective, right? And working in the best way for our bodies. So that's me. Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Heather Dagley. I'm Polite's community wellness educator. I'm also a holistic wellness coach. And working with Sue and Polite these last couple years, I've had the opportunity to research sleep, and so I'm really grateful for those insights. Like everyone else, I've struggled with sleep throughout my life. So just really happy to be here today and share some of these tips and tricks that we've learned along the way.
Yeah, I like to say that we are a society of functioning insomniacs, which is not a good thing, but I think we almost fool ourselves into like trying to trick that math of minimal sleep, maximal output. But we all know that the body keeps score and it doesn't lie. So that's I think that's why Heather and I, when we were thinking about important topics, we is an obvious one. It's clearly one of the main reasons why people turn to cannabis, hemp. Even if you look at the world of over-the-counter solutions, sleep is constantly our best-selling product too, as a need. So, but I think it's telling when everyone's still kind of searching for a better thing, right? So, we thought, it's winter. It's supposed to be when we're all hibernating and restoring ourselves, but modern life doesn't really always let us slow down and take it easier. And so, I think over the years that Heather, you've been helping us doing research, we've been discussing this, we've been learning from experts as well. Why is it so hard to do something that we naturally are supposed to just do, right? I think
Yes.
in the olden days, I mean, there was probably still people that didn't sleep well, but there wasn't blue light. There wasn't even electricity at some point, and so our bodies were kind of forced to match natural rhythms more. But nowadays, it's the opposite. We're almost fighting against our natural rhythms,
Right.
and a lot of it is just learning how to help our bodies do what it's supposed to do rather than hinder it. So let's dive in, right? I think the first thing before we talk solutions and things that we can all do to improve sleep in our own lives, let's talk about, okay, why is sleep so important? I think we all intuitively know it's needed. We're tired the next day if it's not, but there's so much going on from like a physiological, biological level. So can you share with us, like, why is sleep basically the fountain of health, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think to your point, we all intuitively know that sleep is important to us, but when you actually look under the hood and realize how many facets of our health are related to proper sleep, it's like, wow, oh my goodness. Yeah, it is the fountain of health. It's so true that what they say, when we sleep, we heal. And that's actually how it works. It's really that time when we restore. So it's not just like time off to rest every night without function. It's integral to the foundation of our health. I was kind of thinking about how, we know we need to plug in our phones and charge them every night. And
Yeah.
we're much the same. Like we are not able to function without proper sleep. So, some of the facets of our health, really everything is tied to proper sleep, but we can break it down into a few different categories. Our mental capacity is
Mhm.
extremely tied to sleeping properly, and we've all probably felt this in our day to day lives. But if we
Mhm.
don't get the right sleep, our mood might be off, our memory, our cognitive function is just not able to operate on all cylinders. So, there's that mental capacity piece and cognitive piece. There's also physical health is super tied to proper sleep. So the functionality of our immune system is a big one. It
Yes.
turns out that
Yeah.
metabolic health is also really closely linked to sleep health. And then even our hormone balance. Getting back to that circadian rhythm you were talking about, there's this really intricate dance that is light dependent every day
Yeah.
that our bodies are going through. And if we're not sleeping well, then we're
Mhm.
not able to get that proper hormone dispersal throughout the day.
Yeah. And
And
I
then,
remember like in college, right, during finals week, like everyone gets sick after, right?
yes,
Because your body kind of like the adrenaline pushes you through, but then the minute it's all over, shit just falls apart. Like your immune system is like, I that was not good for me.
when you
Yeah.
should be having fun, going and celebrating that finals are
Yeah.
over. Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
sick and like, oh my gosh, that we forgot to prioritize sleep.
Yeah.
That's just a great example of how in modern life
There's no
sleep is kind of
cheating that
can't cheat
system.
it. Yeah.
No.
And it's that thing that we kind of like put at the bottom of the list. Oftentimes we got to get our finals done, we got to study,
Mhm.
got to get ready for work, and it always falls to the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Another one that I wanted to highlight that people don't often think about with sleep health is emotional stability. So it's
Mm.
kind of tied to that mental capacity piece, but it's more like, are you able to act thoughtfully in your day to day instead of just
Yes.
react to things?
Yes.
And
And be yourself, you know?
yes, right.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we're
I
not
mean,
we're not able to kind of like have resilience day to day without
mm-mm.
proper sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can, anyone that lives with you can tell very quickly when you have not rested sufficiently.
It's like a little kid. Go take a nap. You're
Yeah.
clearly cranky. You gotta go take a nap. And
Yeah,
adults are
it's
no
true.
different. We
Yeah.
have to do that. One thing that's interesting too is, especially those of us in the cannabinoid space, those of us that understand the importance of natural wellness and the health of the endocannabinoid system, they've actually tied chronic poor sleep to depletion of the endocannabinoid system. So, and we know
That
that
makes
impacts
sense.
all body
Yeah.
systems. So it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, really underscores how important sleep is.
You hear more about research being done between sleep and like Alzheimer's
Right.
and a lot of the cognitive or degenerative diseases too. So
Yes.
I think we're getting to a point where the science just is letting us know how critical it is, that it should be a non-negotiable.
Right.
But I think for a while there was this culture of like hacking and optimizing, and it's like, how little can you sleep each day, and it's like, oh, this CEO wakes up at 3 a.m. and
Yes.
starts doing it. And I think we're kind of seeing the other side of that now culturally.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I sense. But I think that's always like this, the productivity culture is always something that is fighting against sleep too, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And the energy drink industry is
Oh
huge.
my
And those
gosh,
little five
yes.
hour energies, I used to
Oh,
have so many in college, and it's like, oh
it's
no, that's not the
probably
way.
horrible for your circadian rhythms. Yeah.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So if it would be helpful, we can talk about some of the stuff that happens when you
Yes.
sleep.
Yeah.
That's
I
kind of
think,
cool
yeah,
to
we
know.
we know, like, we have this image of sleep being very passive and you kind of just out, but when you look beyond the surface, there's a lot going on, even though
Yes.
we are resting, right? Our mind is resting.
Yeah, and I love this concept. Like when we tune out, lights out, go to bed at night, there's like a whole, what you and I have been calling, there's a night crew. There's a whole night shift of biological processes that like
Mhm.
clocks in, kicks into gear, and starts to do really imperative things for restoring your body preparation for the next day. So I'll run through a couple of those key things that are happening at night. But we do, back to hormones, we have a hormone cascade that happens when
Mhm.
we sleep. Melatonin, it kind of kicks in before we start sleeping, but it allows us to start preparing for sleep, drifting off, getting tired. There's also some neurotransmitter activity. We've got GABA running through the body, being able to calm the nervous system down so we can stay at rest and our minds aren't buzzing too much. Um, Even though stress can kind of be a difficult factor here, which we'll get to later.
Mhm.
When we sleep, there's also growth hormone that kicks in. So that does a
Mhm.
lot of tissue repair, cell repair, and helps us grow. And when we think about like a little baby, we know how much sleep babies
Yeah.
need, and it's because they need to grow. We need to let that growth hormone do its thing. So that's kind of cool. And then I mentioned the immune system earlier. The immune signaling is really boosted during sleep. So
Mhm.
it's helping the body fight future infections and illnesses. And if we have sleep debt, if we're not sleeping as much as we should be, that immune system can really be
Can't catch
impacted.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one really cool aspect of sleep that most people have probably heard of is called REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep. This is characterized by like, we're actually moving our eyes rapidly underneath our eyelids, but a lot of that good emotional support is happening at this time. So dreams are happening during REM sleep. This process called memory consolidation, literally
Mhm.
filing away the day's memories where they need to go, getting rid of the ones we don't need anymore. And so, specifically, if we're not getting enough REM sleep, that's where we'll see some of that irritability go up, frustration, tolerance
Yeah.
go down.
And just like cognitive abilities also get
Yes,
compromised.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And speaking of cognitive function, there's also this process, or there's this lymphatic system that's almost
Okay.
like the janitors of your brain, and it is
Mhm.
removing toxins and metabolic waste out of your body each and
Yeah.
every night. So
Yeah.
we need that to be happening so that we can think clearly next
Yeah.
day.
Take out all the garbage and the noise that's floating around. And I know, we think about um there's so many distractions in modern life, right? I mean, just light, noise. But the reality is, most of us are not going to have this perfect, like, peaceful cave where nobody bothers us and there's no sirens or there's no like children, you
Yes.
know, not coming into the room. So, with this reality, right? Like, how do we all become more resilient sleepers and be able
Yes.
to handle, the imperfect environment that we have to rest in?
Ooh, that's so good. And that really is the goal with sleep is being resilient. We can't control our environment always, to your point. Life is change and that environment's always going to be changing. So it comes down to just, being able to control your sleep and knowing what levers you can pull as needed to impact your sleep. Some of
Mm-mm.
this comes down to implementing good habits, so some good lifestyle and behavioral things,
Yes.
ditching the bad habits when we're aware of them and when we
Mhm.
can.
Yeah.
No shame, nobody's perfect, but there's sometimes we can identify some bad habits. We'll get into those later too.
Self
Um,
sabotage.
yes, there are so many things that are sabotaging our sleep.
Yeah.
And then just having like a general commitment to good rest, which I think is, something we want to encourage most people to do. Just understanding how important this is, making it a commitment in your life, that's a big part of it.
Mm-mm.
But then the actual doing of it is a lot about self-experimentation, tweaking,
Mhm.
tracking, and just seeing what truly works for you, because it's going to be different from what works for your neighbor or your partner. It's about individual sleep health.
Yes. And we talked too about how what worked in one stage of life may be completely different in another stage. So that's why you're constantly resetting, right? Like for me, right? There's probably hormonal. I'm like, middle age in my 40s, and so there's hormonal shifts going on, and so I'm not sleeping as well, right? And it's kind of this like trying to find a needle in the haystack, although it's not just one needle, right, that you're looking for. And so, we're constantly having to also try many different things and experiment. Um, in light of it being like a really complicated symphony of different things that have to come together in order to sleep deeply, sleep deep enough, sleep long enough, fall asleep easily, right? Um, and so I think, how about you? Have you had the same experience of, what used to work maybe doesn't work anymore? Or you used to be able to have coffee at like 5 p.m. and now you can't anymore?
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes it's what's been removed. I gave up caffeine a little over a year ago, and so that's a
Yeah.
crutch I can't rely on anymore.
Yeah.
But definitely, and I've gone through a lot of those cycles, like you mentioned in college, sleep just wasn't a priority, and I would get those illnesses after big, heavy, study weeks, or what do they call it, all-nighters. I would
Yeah.
pull
Oh man.
those.
I can't
It
do
just
that
doesn't work
anymore.
anymore.
I
No, not at
cannot.
all.
That will
That'll
destroy
wreck me
me.
for weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But every time I move, or sometimes change mattress, or just like all these little things, or
Yeah.
work a new work schedule,
Hmm.
or start having more morning appointments. It doesn't take much for you to kind of realize
Thrown
I
off.
got to recalibrate
Yeah.
here. I got to do something different. So
Mhm.
absolutely, I've experienced that.
Yeah. So we know there's so many things we can't control, right? Like sometimes stress is some things happen to us, like and we just have to process it. But there's a lot of things we can do too, right? And so can you share about, like what are things that are sabotaging our sleep? Like we've called them sleep bullies before, you know, so that we start to understand like the things we can control or the levers we do have to try to at least make progress, right? Or
Yes.
improvement.
Absolutely, yes. Because so much of achieving sleep success, and again, that's not about perfection, it's just about doing the best we can. It's about addressing and then tweaking some of these things that we know is getting in the way of our sleep. So I love it. The sleep bullies. For anybody who's not familiar, here at Polite, we have been identifying these common obstacles to sleep, and we've been calling them sleep bullies.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll run down the list of what we've highlighted as some of the main sleep bullies are. Know that we've also got a great blog post on the Polite website, staypolitehemp.com, and it walks through these sleep bullies. And what's fun is we've kind of given them characters, we've personified them a little
We've
bit.
made them cute,
They're cute.
even though they're jerks.
Yeah, they're jerks, but I think that kind of takes the sting out of it, which is really nice because some of these are really disruptive to our sleep and health, as we'll go over. But and another great reason to check out that blog post too, just for everyone listening, is we've outlined a bunch of things you can do to knock out
Mhm.
each of these sleep bullies. So there's a lot of great sleep tips there. Don't miss that. But I'll kind of run down the list of the main ones that we've highlighted. So the first one is stress, worry, racing mind. These kind of all
Yes.
go together. The
Hmm.
things that keep you up when you're trying to just drift off at night and your brain's working a million miles a minute. It
Yeah.
might be because your melatonin hasn't been able to set in yet, because you might be looking at blue light. We'll get to that. But
Hmm.
stress, comes at the top of the list here because it's probably the highest impact sleep bully that we
Yeah.
see,
And this
especially in
includes
modern life.
anxiety,
Yeah.
right? Like worrying about tomorrow, what's today. Yeah.
Emails, so many
Hmm.
jobs are email jobs these days. So
Yes.
there's so
Yeah.
much here. And later on, we'll talk about how hemp helps with sleep in general. But I just wanted to do a shout out for hemp here when we're talking about stress. We know hemp, CBD, can really help people overcome stress. So that's one of the reasons it's supportive for sleep. Moving down the list here, the next sleep bully is physical pain. So we know when
Hmm.
we're aching, not
Yes.
feeling well, that can really impact our ability to drift
Yeah.
off.
For a lot of
Um,
people too, like I've had a lot of our customers tell us it's like when they lay down, that's kind of when a lot of the day's pain just washes over.
yeah,
And so sleep can heighten pain in that sense where you don't have as much distraction, so you feel a lot of pain more sharply.
yeah, yeah, which is awful. And that can
Mm.
lead to chronic sleeplessness, which can actually increase the pain. So it becomes this horrible self-fulfilling cycle. So
Yeah.
if we can throw a wrench in that and get someone either reduction of the physical pain or sleeping
Yes.
through the physical pain, it'll move in the right direction. Yeah, that's key. Some other things, these next three kind of go together. Some things that can get in the way of our sleep. substances that we ingest, like caffeine. We know
Mm-hmm.
that caffeine too late in the day can really throw off our sleep. It's good to
Yeah.
have a cap, noon or one. Maybe don't ingest caffeine after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, the next one is alcohol. Alcohol can sometimes knock us out, but we
Yeah.
actually don't have good sleep
It's
quality
a,
when
it's
we've had too
it's not
much.
the nightcap we think it is,
Right.
right?
Right. You can
Yeah.
say, "Oh my gosh, I've slept for 8 hours," but you are not ready for the day.
Yeah.
You
You're
feel
not
like you've
sleeping
slept a couple.
deeply.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with THC, um, THC in terms of like too much THC or sometimes even using it too late, timing matters. This can also throw off our sleep. And it's a little bit like alcohol, where it might feel sedating, it might feel like it helped us sleep 8 hours or a full night, but when we actually look at sleep quality, it's impacted.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically with THC, REM sleep is
Mm-hmm.
really impacted by THC. And
Yeah.
some people will even find that if they've consumed too much, they aren't dreaming, which has
Mm-hmm.
implications on that emotional stability.
Mm.
So just wanted to call this out and highlight that balance is important from a sleep
Yes.
perspective.
Yes.
Mhm.
And knowing your own body and how it's sensitive to different compounds and substances. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes even just that awareness. There's a lot of different guidance in the cannabis space, I will say, around THC for sleep. And
Yeah.
so it might be something where you genuinely think that it has been helping you, but that awareness that, oh, it might be impacting REM
Mhm.
sleep. You
Yeah.
can track your own sleep or assess, oh, has this
Yeah.
actually been helpful? Am I achieving my goals with
Yeah.
this
And
strategy?
and we'll talk a little later about it, but it's not that any compound is totally good or bad for sleep. It's
Right.
about the right amount, the right combination, the right cannabinoid profile in the case of hemp and cannabis. And so it's like being, I think it's being more critical of like, okay, well, what form is good for me when it comes to sleep, or what combination, or what time, what dose, right? Those
Right.
details really matter.
They do. Exactly. Absolutely. Profile matters. Yes. A few other sleep bullies we'll call out is late night screen time. We might call it
Hmm.
doom scrolling, even just being on
all
that
all
phone.
guilty
Me,
except the Amish.
yeah, exactly. Well, I was thinking about it. Like literally, our whole life is on our phone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
huge call to action to look at it all the time. But it's definitely having a negative impact on our
Mhm.
sleep. Yeah.
Yeah. It's become, I think, um, a lot like what we said about alcohol and THC. Like we use it to like self-soothe and like wind down, but it actually has this counterproductive effect
Yes.
if you talk about sleep quality, right?
Right.
So that's, yeah.
Well, it's twofold, especially if you're scrolling like the short form videos. There's so much content and basically noise coming
And
in
you're
that
like, oh, it's 1 a.m.
yes,
and
time is
I've been
flying
looking at
by.
squirrels and things that I
Right.
really didn't need to look at.
One more video.
Yeah.
And then it's also the blue light that's coming out of the
Yes.
phone is
Yeah.
really impactful
Yeah.
for that circadian rhythm we were talking about.
Mhm.
It tricks your body into thinking it's still daylight. And so that
Yes.
cascade of melatonin that we really need for drifting off, it's not coming.
Mhm.
So it's like a double whammy when it comes to
I
impacting sleep.
I think also, if you're talking about news and what's going on in the world today, it's very anxiety inducing
Yes, right,
to like
exactly.
to like scroll through all the world's like worst problems
Right.
right before you go to sleep, right?
Yeah. Now
So
drift off and be comfortable. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's all kinds of counterproductive, but yet we're kind of habituated to feel like it's helping us wind down when it's actually winding us up in many
Yes.
ways.
Yes.
Um,
No, that's so true. And this is a hard one. I'd say this is one of my most challenging ones. I know some people that are really good about like keeping their phone in the bathroom or in the hallway when
mhm,
they go to
yeah.
bed. I'm not quite there. So there's like some middle way
Yeah.
approaches that you can take for this. Like one thing I do is I'll put on an Audible book. I still want
Mhm.
a little bit of noise,
Yeah.
but that way
Yes.
I'm not looking at a blue light screen. And
Yes.
so it's kind of a middle of the road approach that allows my melatonin at least to start
Hmm.
kicking in. Yeah.
Hmm. That's a great
So,
idea.
so look at what works for you, everyone. It's not easy to just rip the phone away, but
Yep.
there's little tweaks. Yeah. Okay, the next couple we've got lack of movement. So just lack of exercise during the daytime can impact our ability to relax and rest at night. So, that might just mean another walk around the block during the day,
Hmm.
or if you have a sedentary job, this is particularly hard, but maybe a standing desk. Any of those things are going to help you improve your sleep quality that night. And then also low sunlight exposure. So we've been
Hmm.
talking about how the circadian rhythm really relies on the right amount of light each day. Turns out we
Yes.
really need to get outside and in the sun during the
Hmm.
day to help facilitate sleep later at night. So if you're having
Yes.
trouble sleeping and you don't get outside a lot, it might be
Hmm.
reason to head outside more.
Yeah, well, and again, we'll talk about how this relates to cannabinoids too, but a lot of times we put all the onus on bedtime routine
Yes.
to sleep better when, if we broaden that and we spread that out to like, well, what do you do in the morning? What do you do in the afternoon? All these things actually have like a compounded effect. And I think for different bodies, they can matter even more sometimes. Like, for me, right? I think sometimes taking cannabinoids in the morning actually can affect my sleep more than trying to take it at night right before sleep. So I think in the
Yes.
same way our habits, how active we are, it's a whole day thing to pay attention to, not just what you do right before bed.
Right. That's such a good
Um,
point. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but yeah, it's
yeah.
all one 24-hour cycle. So
Mhm.
every behavior in your day, it matters for sleep. Yeah. And then our last sleep bully that we've identified is we call it the munchies monster, but late night eating. So just like eating too
which,
close
which
to when
THC also has a connection to.
can really impact, absolutely. So yeah, watching THC use at night for this one, but just trying not to eat a couple hours before bed. The body gets, more focused on digestion at that point as opposed to kicking off the sleep process. So, and it
Yes.
can lead to like indigestion and heartburn. So
Mhm.
we encourage folks to, finish their meal, close the kitchen, brush your teeth, and then get ready for bed a couple hours later.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So, in terms of these sleep bullies, I just want to normalize a lot of people experience many of these stacked on top of one another. It's not
Yeah.
about addressing one, usually, it's just awareness of kind of the whole picture here.
Mhm.
And one thing that can be really helpful when assessing this is tracking your behaviors and seeing how often these sleep bullies or these sleep sabotages are really getting into your day and night
Yeah.
routine.
Sometimes it's not conscious, right? Until we take a step back and observe and connect the dots of like,
Yes.
oh, shoot, I did have tea at 3 p.m., Yeah.
And it may just not be something you're aware of until you sit down and start tracking it.
Hmm.
So we here at Polite, we have something that's meant to help with this. We have these trackers that we put together. These are actually part of our rest reset guide that we put together. So we put together a fun and engaging sleep guide that is a great supplement to Polite products. And it's got a lot of good sleep exercises and good information,
Tips. Yeah.
tips, but also these great trackers that allow you to assess your sleep health holistically. And so there's many components of this, but one part of it is we actually have you track your sleep bullies. So
Hmm.
you can think about that 3 p.m. cup of tea and kind of everything else that's played in. And then you'll actually next day track how that impacted your sleep. So
Yeah.
doing this consistently over time can really create a lot of awareness.
So this is, if you go on our homepage at staypolitehemp.com, it's downloadable for free. We spent a good many months working with a amazing design team on it. So we poured our heart and soul into it because we wanted to share it with everyone and think beyond just what you consume or the supplements you take, to think about the bigger picture, because we know that there's no silver bullet. And so yeah, we hope everyone can take advantage of this amazing reset guide
It's really
that
fun.
we've put out into the world.
And you'll meet our sleep bully characters in there too, so that's pretty fun. Cool.
uh, so I think the next thing we wanted to talk about is, you know, tracking is really a bigger part of self experimentation,
Yes.
right? And I think, especially with plant medicine and natural health, it always requires you to play a really big role in observing and adjusting, and paying a lot of attention to, like, how you get
Oh, I can't hear you.
certain compounds that work beautifully for one person, has the counter effect on you, right? And
Yes.
so, what do you think about this need to, like, create the right conditions, right? So
Yeah.
that we can do these experiments and find our way to what works.
Yes. Great point. Yeah, to your point, we can't force the right conditions for sleep. It's not about that. It's not it's more about just kind of doing what we can to encourage the right conditions. And so this
Yes.
might look like having the right wind down ritual, taking that time before sleep to do something really peaceful, journal, maybe a little bit of yoga, light a candle. I think it comes back to that commitment to rest that we talked about earlier too, like just holding that close to your heart and having that be a health goal. We have so
Mhm.
many other health goals, weight loss, exercise, protein. Have sleep be one of your health goals. And then I think just giving yourself permission, that's really important when it comes to rest. Giving yourself permission to nap
Oh
occasionally,
my gosh,
without
yes.
guilt.
I'm a big fan of naps.
Naps are amazing.
Like
Again,
guilt-free naps.
guilt-free. It's important. And I think, even just kind of reframing rest in our heads can be important. So often our society thinks of rest as like antithetical to good work or to our productivity. But if you can see rest as actually supplemental and
Or essential.
foundational, yeah, essential for good work,
Yeah.
because it truly is. We know that we're not able to perform cognitively and do our best work without this. So
Mhm.
see it as that foundation that you can then build upon, I think is really key.
Yeah.
And I'll say that with approaching sleep and sleep success, gentleness is really important. We need to be gentle with ourselves. Yes, sleep is a good health goal, but we don't want to over obsess. We don't want to become sleep
Yes, you can easily
OCD.
become obsessive in a way that gives you even more anxiety of, like, oh no, I
Totally.
only slept this long last night, or I messed up here and I shouldn't have done this, right?
Right. And that's easy to do. I track my sleep with my Aura ring every night, and it's like I gotta give myself grace, even if my score wasn't that good. So
Yeah.
just having that gentleness. It's about awareness, but with balance. We don't want to
Mhm.
shame ourselves. But then with that, we also want to employ gentleness with like all the interventions we bring on board. So avoiding harsh interventions. There's so many sleep aids out there that are actually like not working well with our bodies. And so finding natural supports that do work well with our bodies are gentle yet effective. And that's why I love, cannabinoids and natural herbs so much for sleep support is they are gentle. They work with our bodies. It's about synergy. It's not about like that sledgehammer effect of some other
Sure.
sleep aids.
Yes. Yeah. I
Hmm.
think I think that's what's led so many people to turn to hemp and cannabis and cannabinoids for sleep, right? Like they've tried things, but either they don't feel like themselves next day, or it's such a heavy sedation that it just doesn't feel natural, right? Or you get like crazy dreams, or you're really groggy the next day, so it's not really helping you be more functional.
Right.
Or there's things that you become dependent on. And so I think what is so amazing about cannabinoids and natural health, when used properly, is it's gentle on your body, yet it's sometimes often more effective and more powerful in that sense, in terms of giving you like sustainable results,
Yes.
but still, while helping to not just maintain balance, but oftentimes we're off balance, and so it's helping you regain the balance that's missing,
Yes.
right? And another thing that I've always really appreciated is that it's not a compound that wants you to be hooked forever, right?
Right.
Like the goal is that you start their training wheels, and that eventually your body, your circadian rhythms, can actually come back to normal. And when it's time to step away, there's also not this crazy withdrawal, or this harsh process that your body has to go through when you either forget to take it or don't need it anymore. um, and that you can return to just relying on your body's own mechanisms that have been like restored, you know.
Yes. And that's huge because so many can be, unfortunately, become dependent on sleep pharmaceuticals. So that's a really huge benefit to natural medicine. It's there as needed, but you don't need to rely on it day to day.
Yeah, yeah. So let's jump into, you know, of course, right? So many people are coming to the world of cannabis, hemp, cannabinoids specifically to help with sleep.
Right.
What is it about cannabinoids that makes them supportive of sleep?
Yes, great. You were talking about balance, and that's a great segue into this. You know, we need to balance the body and actually support kind of that homeostatic function that we need in order to sleep well. And that's where cannabis comes in, because of the way that it works with our endocannabinoid system, which is the master regulator, the great balancer of the body. So cannabinoids, we know, modulate the endocannabinoid system, and this system has such a big impact over sleep. Sleep
Mhm.
and the ECS, they're intricately related.
Yes.
We know that the ECS helps us eat, sleep, relax, protect, and forget. That's one of the little monikers about it. But sleep being such an important function of what the ECS does for us. And like I mentioned earlier, we know that chronic poor sleep depletes the ECS. And so these two things are so supportive of one another. And when one suffers, so does the other. So that's where we can leverage broad spectrum, full spectrum options, particularly things that are rich in CBD and other great minor cannabinoids. CBN being a key one of those can really help to just boost the endocannabinoid system in such a way that has positive impacts
Mhm.
on sleep. And then, you know, CBD we know can be really helpful for stress and anxiety, which we talked about earlier. So that's a little bit of that root cause support. Let's reduce the stress and anxiety, get your body able to
Yeah,
be
the
relaxed and
pain.
more. Yes,
Mhm.
pain reduction, exactly. Cannabis, hemp can help just address so many of those sleep bullies directly. So it's like this beautiful symbiotic way to address sleeplessness. And we see it in the data too. There was a recent poll that said 16% of adults now are using cannabinoids. I think it may have been American adults, I'm not sure, or if it was global, but these are numbers are growing because people are finding this effective and helpful.
And for those that are less familiar with the minor cannabinoids, like we, you know, we're talking about CBN here.
Yeah,
Um, you know, CBN, it wasn't really available or accessible in 10 years ago,
right.
right? It was always naturally occurring in the plant. But I know you know, we've looked at how CBN, because it's a newer compound that in terms of being scientifically studied, like, you know,
Yes.
anecdotally, people now associate it a lot with sleep, you know, and sleep support. But you know, what's happening in terms of our understanding of CBN and how it's part of the, you know, the supporting cast, or and sometimes even becoming like the lead when we talk about sleep support.
Yes, great point. Yeah, CBN is really cool. It was not understood, you know, even just a couple of years ago, and now we're starting to see more and more information about it. So I think first came the anecdotal reports. People were really reporting that cannabis preparations high in CBD were helping them sleep better. And now we've got some of the supporting science. I love that about this industry is sometimes the science follows the anecdotes, but it backs it
Hmm.
up. So we're seeing
Yeah.
some really cool animal, but even some human studies coming live about CBN that's helping us understand what it does. And some of the things they've been able to point out is that it can help with longer sleep duration, increased non-REM sleep, but also increased REM sleep, and then also fewer nighttime awakenings.
Hmm.
And so there's all these different ways in which CBN is supportive. And then when we pair it with CBD and other minor cannabinoids, and sometimes other functional herbs and natural
Yes.
ingredients, it's this powerhouse. So I think it's really cool to see that coming live and truly helping people's lives.
Yeah, and we all know, you know, with our whole philosophy of full spectrum cannabinoids is that, you know, they all the cannabinoids and compounds and herbs have different benefits, but you know, combining them in a way where they work better together is always key, right?
Yes.
And so I think be wary of anyone that kind of just tells you that one isolated thing is the silver bullet, right? Because that's usually not how nature works. It's not how all these active compounds work in our body.
Right, exactly. They work better together, just like humans. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So now, we were talking about minors, majors. This can be really confusing for an average person to understand, because the average person goes into a store, goes online, they they get recommended something for sleep, or they look at a product that's marketed for sleep. What how do we navigate this, and what is the process of understanding like the right profile for sleep, right? Because this
Yes.
is different for every person as well.
Right, that's true. There is bio-individuality. But yes, so I've been in the cannabis wellness space for several years now, and I feel like the guidance on this has changed. And that just speaks to the fact that we're gaining more knowledge at all times. I think historically people would say high potency, high THC potency. This is the way to go. That's
Yeah,
going to help
like it
people
needs to be
sleep.
strong enough to knock you out, kind of
Exactly,
logic, right?
exactly. And the thought process was there, and a lot of times people would point to high potency edibles specifically. Again, that thought process being that that's gonna there's a longer duration of edibles, so that's gonna help you get through the night. But what we're finding now with the supportive research is kind of what we talked about earlier, how THC can actually have a disruption to REM sleep, especially when used over time. So we're finding that from a long-term perspective, high potency preparations actually probably aren't the best thing to support someone's sleep. And just because it knocks you out doesn't mean that it's giving you excellent sleep quality.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
they're two separate things. Yeah.
it's almost like fake good sleep. That's sort of
Hmm.
what you're going to get from a high
Hmm.
potency product. So I would say that people are going to get a much better experience night by night, but also consistently over time with a low or no THC option, full spectrum or broad spectrum, whatever works best for their profile, and then other minor cannabinoids. So like that's why I love Polite's Rest Well drops. We've got a little THC in here, but then the heroes are CBD and CBN and other minor ingredients and other functional herbs. And that's going to be more effective, and it's not going to disrupt REM sleep, but it is going to help balance the body in
Hmm.
such a way that supports better rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I remember learning too about how even the mode of administration, well, that's very medical, like saying, over like how you consume cannabinoids has a rhythm to it too. So for instance, inhalation, it's the fastest onset, but the effects are also going to trail faster,
Yes.
right? And so that's why after an hour or two, the effects may be gone, right? Whereas with like edibles or a tincture, it's going to take a little longer to feel the onset, but the results, the effects are going to stay in your body maybe for some people 6 hours, less or more 8 hours. And so when
Yes.
it comes to sleep, there's a there's an art to understanding how to use each form of consumption to your advantage too, in terms of combining onset time with staying power in your body as well.
So true, absolutely. And so, like, to that point, if staying power is really what somebody needs, I would recommend kind of like I was talking about earlier, but that edible mode of administration can be helpful. So
Mhm.
Polite's Goodnight gummies are awesome for that because it is no THC, but it's
Shameless
yay, there
plug.
they are. They've got the good supportive cannabinoids, CBD and
CBN.
CBN,
Yeah.
right? And yet they're in that edible form, so it will last throughout the night. And
Mhm.
so you can really kind of think, well, what are my key goals? What are my key sleep struggles? Is it
Yeah.
waking up a lot of times during the night? Is it not sleeping long enough? And then you can choose the right administration
Yeah,
mode for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, again, there's no right answer. It depends on your body, right? Like if someone mainly has problems falling asleep, inhalation might be sufficient because it's just about the thing that gets you down, right?
Yeah.
And then for people that have problems sleeping through the night or with a lot of night wakings, then a tincture, oil, or an edible might be the better thing to um, have lasting power right through the night.
Yes.
And then I've even, the master coordinator may combine everything where you're like inhaling for the support to help you fall asleep, and then also taking an oil or an edible to then kick in once the inhalation wears off. That edible could kick in. And so it's really, again, it comes down to experimenting, but knowing what your body responds well to. right?
Yes.
And it's hard to do that if you're not uh, observing and tracking, at least for a starting period of time,
Right.
to understand how to adjust and what your body liked or didn't like, how you felt the next day, right? To get
Exactly.
to find that sweet spot.
Yes. And nothing's ever going to last forever, but you're right. That tracking can just be at the very beginning while you're kind of getting onto that on ramp. And that's what I love about the Rest Reset Guide kind of experience that we put together. It's a 3 day experience. We highlight that, even just tracking your sleep for 3 days and
Yes.
going through this exercise can do a lot to reset your relationship with rest.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be forever. Just a little concerted effort can go a long way.
Right. And I think that sometimes our daily routines become almost subconscious,
Yes.
and so we focus on like the problem of like, oh, I can't sleep well, but sometimes we don't give ourselves enough pause to look and observe and reflect on everything going on, right?
Yes.
And even to just it's I mean, in a cheesy way, it's kind of like self-care, right? It's like you kind of have to stop and pause and focus on it if you want something to get better, right? You have to like give it attention, give it energy.
Yes.
um Otherwise, if you're just slamming something down and then wanting it to work, right? I think your body knows, like it takes more and intention and attention,
Yes.
right, to really do the experimentation required to to troubleshoot, essentially, right?
Yes. And that gentleness absolutely goes a long, long way.
You
Definitely.
know,
It's great.
um, I think I remember too when we first started, like with the creation of Polite, right? We of course knew sleep was a key area we wanted to focus on, but one of the big inspirations behind the sleep formula and all the formulas for that matter is that a lot of our founders who had experience on the medical side and patient side, people just kept getting recommended the wrong things, right? And so I remember this story of an elderly woman. She was probably in her 70s, and she reached out to us maybe through email, and then I ended up zooming with her because I wanted to, the user researcher in me, I wanted to understand like how people are using Polite, what worked, what didn't work. And she was telling me how her daughter was a nurse, and her daughter often goes to the dispensary and would find something for her mom to try and specifically for sleep, because she knew her mom had problems sleeping. And she was telling me, I tried everything. Like, she gave me like super high potency stuff, and I was like, what? This doesn't even do anything for me. And she kept trying to think like, oh, maybe it's not high enough potency, or higher, higher, higher. And she tried all these things, like nothing worked. And when she tried Polite, and people always have that perception, right? Oh, it's low potency, like in terms of THC, like they're really shocked. Like, why is it that this actually made a difference, right? And so it's that journey of understanding how things actually work with your body, what's productive, counterproductive when it comes to sleep. So I always think of that woman and how um, we if we don't uh, if we don't have the right kind of knowledge, we
Right.
can kind of just go off assumptions,
Yes.
and that can waste a lot of time and money, right? And so it's key to kind of dig deeper, right? And not just take things at face value of like, this is what everyone else is taking, or this is what everyone else is doing, or for like myself, for example, everyone takes magnesium to help them sleep, right? Like, I've tried it so many times, different brands, different amounts, and like, I don't think it doesn't help me, right? Maybe I'm
Right.
using it wrong, but like sometimes we're just so stubborn, about like, it's working for everybody else, why is it not working for me, right?
Yes. No, it's true. And I think in the health space in general, but especially in the cannabinoid space, like we have to maintain that open mind. And the proof is in the results. That customer feedback is absolutely king. So positive customer experiences like that, they mean almost more than anything. What is truly helping people sleep
Mhm.
better, improve their health, all that feedback matters so much.
Yeah. I think as we wind down here, it's getting close to the hour. What have you found has made a difference in your life, right? Through
Yeah.
the different cycles of and relationships that you've had with sleep.
Yeah. Oh gosh. A lot of things. Definitely cannabinoids. Once I dialed in the right profile, that has absolutely helped.
And
Um,
what do you have like a profile that tends to be your go-to for
yeah.
sleep?
So I rest oil drops are my go-to. If I'm having a hard time falling asleep, I find that the Goodnight gummies are just amazing. Like, and I've had a couple friends say the same thing, like, wow, that really gently brought me into sleep. So I keep those handy for nights where I'm like particularly stressed or having a particularly hard time getting to sleep. Really, really effective. And then I think just like that recommitting to sleep, giving myself permission to nap during the middle of the day
Yeah.
or, sleep a little bit extra. I think I was telling you the other day, but I've stopped doing early morning appointments. Like I used to go to, book my doctor's appointments or whatever for like 7 or 8 a.m. And I
Trying
realized,
to be like efficient.
yeah, be efficient,
Yeah.
then I could work with the rest of my day, do all this. But then I get really tired and ultimately very irritable. So if I can bump those things to like, let's start at 10 a.m., take a
Mhm.
slow morning, sleep in, that allows my body to just truly grab the sleep that it needs. So I know that not
Mhm.
everybody can have that schedule flexibility all the time, but it's finding those little paths to what
Yes.
works for you.
I
That's
think
been
on
helping.
the other end, sometimes I think many we can't control what time we have to wake up, but we can control what time we go to bed, right? And I
Yes.
think that there's increasing science and conversation around the optimal bedtime, right? Which sometimes like too early is not good, too late is not good. And so again, right, like if you track, journal, or observe, it's like, oh, actually when I went to bed at 10:30, I actually slept way better than when I tried to sleep at like 9:30 or
Yeah.
11, right? So I think that's another thing for all of us to experiment with, and the things that we can control.
Yeah.
You know,
What about you? What's your biggest needle mover?
well, we've talked about this a lot, right? And in fact, I think maybe when we talked about burnout, this came up
Mm,
where I realized uh like how much guilt I used to have with letting myself rest.
yeah.
Of like you kind of are conditioned to feel like it's lazy, if like you sleep too much or nap during the day. And I became more conscious of this false like worship of overproductivity,
Right.
when you and so I think a lot of it was just giving myself permission to rest when I'm tired. It sounds
Right.
really silly and really simple, but I imagine I'm not the only one that felt or feels that way, right? Where it's like, actually, it's, and it's not just resting for the sake of then being more productive after
Right.
you rest, right? It's like, no, it's giving ourselves the permission and the acknowledgement that we have a human body, like, it likes to be rested, and we owe it to ourselves to take care of our body that way.
Yes.
If we want it to be healthy, if we don't want to get sick, if we want to be able to feel good,
Right.
and to not try to cheat that or shortcut it either,
Yeah.
right? Because I think a lot of the wellness industry is about hacking and shortcutting and somehow, and like doing more with less. But I don't think that's how nature works. I don't think that's how our bodies work.
Right.
Like
I agree.
it needs what it needs,
Yes.
right? And there's trade-offs.
Yeah.
So I think I had to get really honest with myself about um what I need. But again, like I mentioned, like, hormones are changing, and life has its ebbs and flows of busy times, slower times. So I'm still learning, how to roll with that, and uh be less of, like we said, talked about sleep resilience, right?
Yeah.
To be more resilient, less impacted by external things, that then all of a sudden, like, throw off your sleep, and more like, grounded in like an internal sustainable way of getting consistent good sleep. I'm not
Mm.
there yet. I'm definitely not there yet, but I'm definitely like trying and searching and experimenting and like it's almost like everyone has their own little lab, right? It's like, oh, let me if I air out my room and make it cooler, if I like, don't wear too many clothes, if I have a thinner blanket, right? There's so many things. And I think for a period of time I was stressing myself out about it. I think we talked about this for like when you
Mhm.
become obsessive and you're like, oh, I need to do all these things. And I think nowadays I try to give myself more grace, and it's almost like a, I don't know if fun is the right word, but it's like a more of a curiosity of like, huh, if I do this, does that help? If I do this, does it, you know, negatively impact me? And just like with kids and eating, like, there's a little parenting metaphor, right? It's like I remember someone teaching me about how don't stress about what your kid eats every day.
Mm.
Think about it more as like, okay, in this week, across this week, did they get enough like vegetables and a balanced meal? And I think we should approach sleep the same way. Like, don't obsess over like, did I get my 8 hours like this in this window? It's like, no, you're gonna have hard days and stressful days and good days and bad days and jet lag days and you know ambulance siren days. So it's like, don't obsess about the day, but look at like the week or the a broader view of like, okay, overall, are my habits getting better? Am I
Mm.
getting better? Am I worse? Like, do I need more help, or am I finding my way? Right? Is it time to change something, or should I stick to this longer? Right? And I think those are the dialogues we have to have with ourselves to find a way. Yeah.
That's so key. Yeah, one bad night of sleep is not going to throw you off completely, but it's about like the long-term vision, the
Yeah.
consistency, longevity. Like, what does that look like? That's what matters so
And to
much.
not to be gentle with ourselves, not beat ourselves up. And I think with such a data driven world these days, it's very easy to like almost be too like competitive with yourself, right? It's like, last week I had like way more REM sleep, and so I think yeah, it's that same, taking that same gentleness but eyes open approach to like be
Yes.
very aware of like, how are we sabotaging versus supporting,
Mm.
right? And what
Yes.
what supports, whether it's cannabinoids or temperature or mattress, whatever that may be, what things are actually making a difference versus not, right? And you won't know unless you think about like, how was my energy the next day? Like, I would normally be much sleepier in the afternoon. I'd normally have a crash, but hey, I didn't have a crash. Like, I think it takes those kind of real world data points beyond
Yes.
just like how many hours, right?
Right.
To know the benefits and the
Yeah.
difference.
Sleep is simple, but there's actually a ton of components that feed into sleep health. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's why we created this reset guide to help all of us kind of take those next steps. And if we've never had the chance to be thoughtful and reflect, you know, this is just a way to kind of help facilitate that conversation with yourself, and hopefully get more right out of whatever habits or things you're trying to do.
Yes. Yes. Make it stick. Where does the rubber meet the road? The rest reset can help that happen. Yeah.
Yes. So, Heather, you want to point everybody to the amazing resources you've been fundamental in helping us create?
Yes, thank you. So exactly, we're talking about this rest reset guide. This is free. Please go download it. It's really fun. It's great information. You can find it on the homepage of Polite's website, so staypolitehemp.com.
It's
And it's
linked in all
also
of our social media platforms too, in our bio,
exactly,
right?
yeah, link in bio on both of these accounts, Stay Polite and Stay Polite Hemp. So go check it out. You can walk through it at your own pace. Just
You
meant
can
to be
print
a
out the tracker journal pages at
yes.
home.
Yes, they look kind of like this. So
Yeah.
you can get a lot of value out of it. So definitely check that out. And then, like I was mentioning earlier, we've got some great sleep blogs on the website as well. Same website, staypolitehemp.com. Check out the blog post on sleep bullies. We've also got one about the night crew, what's happening when you're asleep. We've got another great one about CBN. So you can get a lot of great information about these various sleep topics that we've talked about here today.
And last but not least, we launched these not long ago, our good night gummies. on our hemp website, right? So it has CBD, CBN, 5-HTP melatonin. For those who like some sweet ways to consume cannabinoids, and then we have our oil tincture, Restro oil tincture, the OG, which has kava and peppermint, as well as CBD, CBN, full spectrum. And this is great for people who don't want any sugar, want to be able to control the dose more easily. And so check these out. We're here to help you. Our team is here to support you. And we look forward to our next flight conversation. Thank you, Heather, for
Thank you,
joining me
Sue.
today.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see everybody next time.
Thank you for joining. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.